As far as Kamala's finishing message, I think she has two audiences for it, and you're seeing these quite split. So she has the protecting democracy message, which she has to do to get those Republicans and right-leaning independents who don't like Donald Trump and are considering voting for her. And she did a lot of that in the town hall last night, was talking about that. That's where the fascism conversation comes in, talking about what Mark Milley said, what John Kelly said. 40 of 44 cabinet secretaries that work for Donald Trump aren't backing him. And there were a number of big endorsements just out today. The Republican mayor of Waukesha, which is a GOP stronghold, 40-year GOP state senator, also from Wisconsin, and former GOP Congressman Fred Upton, coming out and saying, I've never voted for a Democrat in my life, but this is what we have to do now. And then the other closing message is for the rank-and-file Democrats, for people more like me, and that's going to be about reproductive rights, cost of living, talking about that Medicare proposal to expand coverage for people at home, aging people, protecting health care, building housing, et cetera.
That was one of the few voices of reason at the Fox propaganda outlet in Jessica Tarlov talking about the two different closing messages of the Kamala Harris campaign. Of course, the first speaking to Democratic voters, talking about reproductive freedom, talking about fighting price gouging, but also speaking to Republican voters, which Kamala Harris has been able to do at a historic level. Just the other day, we saw her with Liz Cheney, and with this breaking story about what John Kelly has described as Donald Trump's praise of Hitler and his desire for his generals to be loyal to him like Nazis, Kamala Harris is continuing to speak to Republicans about the failure of Donald Trump's character that we have always known but continues to get worse, and the threat of a fascist dictatorship that Donald Trump poses. And it's not just Kamala Harris talking about that, and then it's not just Jessica Tarlov on Fox being the only person bringing this up. Donald Trump was asked today by a Fox reporter about these comments from John Kelly, and he absolutely lost it on him, melting down, and you can see the reaction by the Fox reporter, pretty stunned. And we are going to get into all of that, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way. It really means the world to me. Now, like I said, Jessica doing a great job calling out Donald Trump, but Jesse Waters had to respond. So before we get into Trump, let's take a look at what he had to say.
You can't even define fascism. I challenge Kamala to tell us what it is, because a majority of the country doesn't know the word. She needs non-college educated blacks, whites, and Hispanics to turn out for her, and she is smearing her rival as with a mid-20th century European political philosophy. Okay, Jessica.
You think people don't know what Hitler is?
She's calling him a fascist. Go out on the street, ask 20 people what that means,
send Johnny
Jessica.
on the Hitler patrol.
I will. Don't you send my...
Is Jesse Waters' defense of Donald Trump wanting to be a fascist and admiring Hitler that because Americans don't necessarily know the formal definition of fascism, Trump should be off the hook? It shouldn't matter? Because he wants to be a dictator, it's totally all cool because of what people don't have the proper definition? This is the type of disingenuous defense of the indefensible that we always see from Fox, and I think it's why Donald Trump himself was so surprised when he was asked the question about John Kelly's comments, and that is the reason why he melted down and really just screwed himself with what he said. But before we get into Trump's answer of that question, I want to see Kamala Harris answer the same question because she was asked last night.
You've quoted General Milley calling Donald Trump a fascist. You yourself have not used that word to describe him. Let me ask you tonight, do you think Donald Trump is a fascist?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And I also believe that the people who know him best on this subject should be trusted. Again, look at their careers.
It is clear, it is plain, it is simple. Donald Trump is a fascist. We know it to be true. Even Donald Trump knows it to be true because he aspires to be a dictator. He has talked so much, so often, so recently about wanting to rule with an iron fist, how he looks up to Orban, looks up to Xi, looks up to Putin. We know that him and Putin are basically sending love letters back and forth to each other, even as Donald Trump is out of the White House, and that should terrify us all. And again, it was so shocking that Donald Trump was asked about this by Fox. He wasn't expecting it, certainly, and that is why he gave this reaction when asked the question.
Me a fascist, and everyone knows that's not true. They call me everything until, something sticks.
I want to give you a chance to respond to your former chief of staff, John Kelly, directly. He said some things about you, essentially accusing you of disparaging American soldiers in an Atlantic article. When's the last time you talked to him, and how would you like to respond?
Years ago, I fired him. He was a bully, he was a bad guy, and he ended up being a weak guy because all bullies end up being weak. And he wasn't a smart guy. It's a bad combination. But I fired him. He made a statement that I'm like Hitler. It's just couldn't be further from the truth. It's just the opposite, actually.
I have 100% faith in the report given on John Kelly's statements. You do not have to convince me. But Donald Trump's denial only convinces me more. And we talk about the projection from Trump, saying that John Kelly is a bully, saying that he is a liar, saying that he is wrong and isn't telling the truth. Donald, that's you. You are the insecure one. You are the bully. You are the liar. And again, you can see that kind of shocked reaction from Trump that he's even being asked about this question, that it's not a softball interview from Fox, and clearly he cannot handle it as he lashes out, but it just shows the type of person he is and the truth behind those statements from John Kelly and so many other Republicans who have come out against Donald Trump. And that is perfectly being called out by Karine Jean-Pierre in this clip right here.
Do we agree? I know that the vice president just spoke about this. Do we agree about that determination? Yes, we do. We do. Let's not forget, I will point you to January 6th. What we saw on January 6th, 2,000 people were told to go to the Capitol to undo a free and fair election by the former president. It was a dark, dark day in our democracy, and a dangerous one. We have people who died because of what happened on January 6th. And, we cannot forget that. We cannot forget that. And so, and I will add this, that, and I can't believe I even have to say this, but our nation's veterans are heroes. They are heroes. They're not losers or suckers, they are heroes. And to be praising Adolf Hitler is dangerous, and it's also disgusting.
We have to continue to call this out and drive home this point because it can move Republican voters. And there are so many Republican voters out there who are still on the fence, so many Republican-leaning independents as well who Kamala Harris can speak to with this message about Donald Trump's character, his lack of character really, and the type of dictator he would want to be. But it's not the only closing argument that we need in these final days of the campaign. And one argument about Donald Trump's character, and I think we can just clearly say his racism, was made so perfectly by Raphael Warnock, and we're going to take a look.
There's a lot of talk these days about what black men are going to do. Let me speak to that for just a moment. Let me say that I do not believe that there's going to be this wave. I do not believe that significant numbers of black men are going to vote for the likes of Donald Trump. I don't believe that. Now, we are not a monolith. There will be some, but there won't be this wave. After all, we know who Donald Trump is. We're not confused. We know that this is the man who was held accountable by the Justice Department because he wouldn't even rent apartments to black people. We know who Donald Trump is. We know that this is the man who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times and said that 5 young men of color who had been accused of a heinous crime should receive the death penalty. And when it became clear that they were not guilty, when the Central Park 5 became the exonerated 5, he said he still stood by what he said. We know who Donald Trump is. This is the man who entered into the political arena on a racist birther lie that the first African-American president was not born here. We know what he was up to. He was trying to say, you're not one of us.
Democrats are putting together such a strong closing argument against Donald Trump, talking about his lack of character that we have known for so long and only continues to get worse, talking about the Republicans who have come out against him, talking about the failures of his own administration, talking about the failures of his agenda, talking about Project 2025 and the threat that it poses to our freedoms, our civil liberties. What is Donald Trump's closing message, you may ask? It's this.
He doesn't even know what he's watching. Tell him, Jimmy, get up. You're getting up, Jimmy. Let's go. Let's go, Jimmy. I'm not going to use foul language. Get your fat ass out of the couch.
I hate to ask this question because I know it stresses all of us out and it's difficult. I can feel it in my shoulders, even about to say it. How is this race close? That guy versus Kamala Harris? Could the contrast be any clearer? What are we doing at this point? How is anyone undecided? It baffles me. But it is our job as politically engaged people who love and care about this country to continue to try to convince as much as we can every single day in these closing days. And we're going to be doing that on this show every single day. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. You can leave a like on this video. And if you're stuck around to the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And if you have already voted early, please let me know. That would make my day to know that we are getting out for Kamala Harris. And until next time, I'll see you soon.